Hey, and welcome to 9394, a music podcast with Travis Roy. How are you? Good to have you. Thanks for joining us. And by us, I mean myself and my two guests this time. Derek Fern has returned to the show. Then also my friend Jeff Branstrom has also come to join us today. And in fact, me and Derek joined Jeff. We actually met over at his house in a beautiful piece of property in a rural part of the state. And, you know, we just had ourselves a really good day. Every podcaster knows not to record outside. It's a no-no. You don't do that. But I did. And honestly, I have zero regrets. The audio is not great. I did what I could with it. So try and have some patience, I guess. I tweaked it the best I could to get it nice and audible. You can hear everything. I mean, don't get me wrong. But to be honest, that day was about me and Jeff and Derek, you know. It was just a really great day. 3 old friends, 3 former bandmates talking about 3 bands, talking about the work of Stone Temple Pilots, in particular the MTV Unplugged performance from 1993. And we talked about Jar of Flies, the sort of acoustic EP from the great Alice in Chains. And then Jeff, Derek, and myself were all part of a band called Killdrama in like 2005 to 2000. I don't know. And my life is a fucking blur. It was around 2005, 2008, 2007, 2001, 2003. You get the idea. Anyways, this is a double episode. It's pretty long. It's $1.50 or so. The first 2 portions of it, we're talking about those 2 albums. And the rest of it after that, we're just talking about our time in Killdrama together. And even if you have any inkling of that completely obscure band that no one outside of our friend group is remotely aware of, even still, it's going to sound like some inside baseball. We just kind of just sort through some shit, I guess. But it was fun to talk with them about this stuff. And I figured, fuck it, why not? I'm a podcaster. It's my nature to be self-indulgent. I'll do an episode partially devoted to my own band. Oof. Whatever. So we get a little sloppy. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of drinking. And we start to repeat ourselves and slur our words and shit. It gets to be a bit of a shit show by the end. I can't lie. But Derek and Jeff are just such sweet, genuine dudes. And it was really a pleasure to reunite with them. Our other bandmates, Morgan and Jim, couldn't or wouldn't be there. So it was as close to a reunion as we've had in a while of that band. And it was fun to get it all on tape. So here you go.
To go. So where you going to tomorrow?
Okay, all right. I am here with Jeff Branstrom, Derek Fern, and Jasper Boo Boo Branstrom, the dog. Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
This is just an extraordinary weather we're having for this occasion.
We are outside.
Yes, we're outside for this. The sun's shining. Real good friends that I'm looking at right now, side by side, one to my right, one to my left. It's just an amazing experience because there's so much history, there's so much love, there's so much anticipation of what's about to happen. It's one of those things where it's exciting because you're not sure what's going to happen, but you're just hoping that everything's smooth, you know, and it's awesome. Great to see you guys. You know,
great to see you too,
I'm
dude.
happy to have you guys here.
Awesome. Yeah. And thank you for having us because we were at Jeff's house. This is actually my first episode somewhere else. My second episode with Derek Fern returning, but in the flesh. How you doing, Derek? In person.
Yeah, I'm doing awesome. Yeah, we were initially going to do this Jar of Flies episode weeks ago, but my 10-year-old son had a baseball tournament, and that takes a lot out of a man, being outside in the sun for like 6 hours, and then, you know, coming home and having to do anything else is kind of exhausting. So, Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that when I hit you up, I was like, let's just do it in person. I'm coming into town all the way from Colorado, so I made a 1,200-mile trek to be here, and I honestly couldn't be happier to be with both of you guys. This is awesome.
It is, and it's worked out pretty nicely. This is the first time I'm doing 2 guests and 2 albums. We're doing, here, Jeff, which album are we doing from Stone Temple Pilots today?
We're going to do the STP Unplugged, which was aired on MTV in 1994, I believe, but I think it was shot in 93, maybe aired in 94.
Something like that.
Something like that, but yeah, great album. I always enjoyed it. It's different now listening back than it was in the time.
We'll talk about Stone Temple Pilots first, why not? And then we'll talk about which other album, Derek?
Jar of Flies, a 7-song EP by one of my favorite all-time guitarist, Jerry Cantrell, with Alice in Chains. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. I mean, honestly, he's like a guitar god to me. Mm-hmm. Like, I just love his style, so I'm happy to talk about it.
While you brought that up, Mr. Cantrell, real quick, on my 4th episode with Dustin Lintz, I talked about Jay Mascis being like one of the few guitar masters of like the alternative scene. I've regretted that so many times since. Jerry Cantrell, obviously, Tom Morello, Matthew Sweet, Bob Mould. There's like so many great guitarists from there. Jeff Buckley, great call. But Jerry Cantrell, we're definitely going to talk about him, and the DeLeo brothers as well. So ordinarily at this point of the show, I start things off. Of course, someone started mowing their lawn now. Fucking
That's
asshole.
what I was worried about. We're in the country.
Can't you just call him? Like, hey,
I should.
Hey,
all I have is a can and string, though. But.
Yeah. Trying to do a podcast. What's a podcast?
Right, what's a podcast, man? Do you need fertilizer?
So ordinarily, I start the episode talking about like how I know the guest, and Derek, you've already been on and talked about this with me. Jeff, how do you know me and Derek?
Well, I was introduced to you guys briefly before. I was well aware of you guys before our band was formed, but the Killdrama days. Of course, Travis, I remember that you're friends with my brother, Eric Branstrom. Of course. We all know.
Sent him a 9 podcast to do that with him.
Yeah. That was great. And
still happening.
I love it. Still, that's what I meant to say. But Derek, I never met. Never got to know Derek till the Killdrama band actually formed. It was a great relationship. We did a lot of fun stuff together. Always had a lot of laughs. And it's one of those things where when everything went down, I was kind of shocked. Like, wow, whoa, a band and I'm invited to it? I was kind of like, I was taken back a little bit. But that was my first introduction to you guys. It's weird because I think I'm 2 years ahead of you guys.
Yeah, I think so.
So we didn't have those memories that you have like with Peak and all the rest of the crew that we all know and love. Mm-hmm. But I think it worked. I mean, it's different camaraderie because I didn't have the background, so it was a little bit harder to get to know you guys. But in succession, it happened. It didn't have to need the background stuff.
Yeah, being bandmates has a way of really making people tight.
It is.
Definitely.
Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Fern?
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, those are some of the best years of my life is playing with you guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, I look back on those days all the time with such fond memories, Not everything ends the best way and the way you really want it, but, I mean, when we were on top of our game, I mean, those are some of the best times I had, like playing live with you guys and, whether it was 3 people at the Lager House or, opening up for Bear Shark with like hundreds of people packed into the Blind Pig. Like every show was so much fun.
It was.
And getting to know you guys through that process and making music together was so fun.
For sure, man. It's funny. I was thinking about that on the drive over here. Killdrama, the band that Jeff and Derek and I were in, along with Morgan Peak, who's been on the show, and our old friend Jimmy Takacs. I'm trying to think. This is the closest I've had to a Killdrama reunion, I think, since we broke up pretty much, because you left very quickly afterwards, and Morgan went to Florida. So to have 3 former Killdrama members together in the same place, I think maybe it's happened at the Feast once or twice.
Yeah.
Yes,
but pretty rarely. So
the last time was probably Feast 17, the last time I saw Derek.
We're missing Morgan.
We're just missing
Morgan that day. As we miss him now, and Jim, of course.
Sure.
But yeah, so we're going to be talking about Stone Temple Pilots and Alice in Chains and Killdrama. So, sorry. We are going to talk about that our glory days a little bit. But let's start with Stone Temple Pilots and their Unplugged album. So, how did you get into this album? Do you remember?
Well, I was introduced to it by my older brother, Marty. He's a guitar player as well. He learned everything back when we were kids in the 80s when we first started to be musicians. He was into Metallica, then he switched to the grunge scene, just like everybody else did.
Yeah.
Love Nirvana, and then he played Dead and Bloated for me. I distinctly remember hearing that for the first time.
That song's
and
so
I was
ripping.
like, what in the hell is this?
Scares your face off right away.
It's just pure vocal. That's what opens the song. Yeah. And it's like a little bit of distortion on the voice. I don't know if that was natural or not, and I loved him ever since. But that's my introduction to STP.
What about you, Derek? Do you remember getting into STP?
Yeah, for me it was kind of the same thing. Like I heard, the singles, some of which we're going to talk about, like Creep and, those kind
Flush.
of... Yeah, right. and Sex Type Thing, like those songs on the radio, And I was like, yeah, these songs are really good. And then I bought the album, and to be honest, Core is probably a top 10 album for me. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love it. It's from front to back, it's so freaking killer. And the guitar tone on that album, as a guitarist, I'm just like, fuck, it's so good. It's so rich and full and in your face. And just like you're saying, when he starts in and the whole band kicks in, it's like, dun, 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 dun.
And it's so driving as hell.
Yes, that whole album really just hooked me into STP right away.
And this, of course, we're talking about the Unplugged album, so it's a departure. It's those same songs, but they went out of their way to restructure these songs in a way that's more palatable for the acoustic style. Unlike a lot of the other grunge bands and rock bands from the era that did Unplugged, they just kind of showed up and played their songs on acoustic. Yeah. Stone Temple Pilots seemed like they went out of their way to do things a little differently.
They did, and especially when you look at the video for the core stuff and then you watch the Unplugged, because Weiland looked so good. He looked like Clint Eastwood in an asylum to me. He's sitting in that big rocking chair.
Yeah, the rocking chair. Yeah.
Enormous rocking chair, and he's got his hair. He's looking like old school Eastwood to me. That's what I always thought. To me, that's my interpretation.
He definitely has movie star good looks. But I would argue he didn't look comfortable in the chair to me. To me, he looks like he wants to jump up out of that chair and fucking dance around.
Right. Yeah. Because they had an energetic live show, so it was probably tough for him to just sit there in a rocking chair and be like, yeah, we're playing music.
Yeah.
But Jasper, thoughts?
Yeah.
He's breathing.
You like the song?
He's excited. But yeah, not only did he look good, he sounded good, and it was good.
Yeah.
After listening to Core, and this is prior to Purple coming out when this was recorded.
Yeah.
Unplugged, Mm-hmm. And the only real song that they debuted was Big Empty.
Yeah.
Walking shoes worn thin, too much tripping and my soul's worn thin. Time to catch a ride, it leaves today. Her name is what?
From the Crow soundtrack.
From the Crow soundtrack.
Right.
And that song is so good. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, that slide guitar that it comes in and it's a little bit slower than the Purple version.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, 10 beats per minute or something, but it's got that
slightly
groove.
more laid back. Yeah.
And you're just like, ooh, you settle right in. You're like, oh, this is a good song. And I remember seeing that on 120 Minutes or whatever, MTV when they actually played videos. Oh, hey! And you're like, God damn, this is so good. And I was so excited for Purple to come out when, because I love Core so much.
Yeah.
And it was surprising that they were able to hold back from playing Interstate. It makes you wonder what was going on through that. What was the better song? Because a lot of bands, they get together, what's going to be the single? What's going to be the debut thing? And little did they know that Interstate kind of did better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think in the long run.
Ultimately,
would we say?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I feel like it's those kind of choices weren't always on the band either. I think a lot of it was the record companies, making those decisions of what came what and when and how.
Yeah.
But I thought they nailed it with that. Yeah, the Crow.
Who knows if they were getting pushed by the producers from the Crow with that? Hey, let's kind of push the song. But the thing is, if I can talk about what the impact that my favorite song on that album
Well,
is Big Empty.
Okay,
Can I
so
get to that
that's
as
the
quickly?
next question I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
So Big Empty's your favorite song on the album?
It is. It is not only musically, but the way it made me feel. Because I've always liked that movie too. And when I saw the preview for the movie, that has nothing to do with SDP, but they mesh.
Yeah.
And it left an impression when they were showing that sequence of that movie happening, and you're hearing that. And it's just, I felt it. I was enveloped. Like,
Wait.
holy shit.
It's conscious laden, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't get to that lyric. I can keep going if you want.
I love it when you sing to me, but make prolonged eye contact,
Okay,
please.
I will. I'm sorry. But that's the one where I felt the most.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, because there's a lot of songs that I'm like, wow, that was technically proficient. Mm-hmm. And I like the bass line on that. And Eric Kretz was solid as hell, just like Bonham. You know, he's solid as hell.
Yeah, it was cool watching him play like a full kit too, I think,
Yeah.
on the whole thing, you know, like, because I know Dave Grohl, like in the, you know, we don't necessarily need to talk about that, but like how, you know, they went a more acoustic route with the percussion.
Yeah.
But SDP, they're like, nah, fuck it, we're doing the whole kit. And
Well,
he was
there's-
out there with real sticks, like those big fat sticks or whatever. for
There's at
watching the
least
video.
one song that he's playing bongos for, though.
True.
I
yeah.
don't remember what song it was.
Andy Warhol?
Andy Warhol.
No,
yeah.
it's one of the singles. I want to say it was Plush or Creep. He's definitely just like playing bongos for one of those two songs, I
Well, it's
thought.
not Creep.
So, Fern, what's your favorite song on the STP Unplugged?
Mine's got to be Creep. I don't know. It was one of those songs you're like, at that point you'd already heard like 1,000 times on, you know, 89X or, you know, those kind of radio stations locally. And it was almost too much. But I remember the first time I heard the Unplugged version was on 89X. When he goes up an octave in that second verse, think you'll kind of need. Like, it still gives me fucking chills.
Yeah.
Like every time he goes up there, I'm just like, whoa! Like it's that sweet spot. Like, you know, because on the recorded version he does not go up. He keeps it in that lower register. But I mean, just that literally those like 2 lines maybe just get me every time, and it just makes the whole thing.
It's a moment.
Yeah,
It's a moment.
Yeah.
And Creep is probably like, if I was just looking at those 7 songs on their own, I'd say like it's my favorite. But as far as like from the album version, but for this specifically the Unplugged version of these songs, I love Cracker Man. I think it's
it's so
fucking-
driving.
Yeah.
it's just like to kick off an acoustic album like that and just have
For
it
sure.
It's like
1-2,
rocking.
1-2
Yeah.
the whole time.
Yeah, it's really tight. It's
Very
really, really fun.
Yeah.
Kind of surprises me because it's not a song necessarily when I listen to chords I'm like, oh yeah, here's my jam, Cracker Man,
Right, yeah.
right, like it's actually, I think it's better than the album
It
version.
is.
Yeah.
It's
It
really tight.
It shows the root of the song better.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what
it
I mean?
exactly.
Yeah. The essence. Yeah.
Awesome.
For sure.
So I don't know about you guys, like this is like a hard album to get a hold of, right? Like, did you listen to it on YouTube? That's the only place I could find it.
Yeah, I had to look at many different versions of it, and they had it kind of mixed up.
Right?
And they threw in a bunch of other acoustic stuff that didn't even
Right.
that happened like 3 years later.
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
tried to
Sour
mix it all
Girl.
together.
You know, it's like that's not the album. Their
Right.
album is really just 7 songs,
7
right?
songs.
Oh, which
And what's interesting too is Andy Warhol didn't make the
televised.
the televised version is because there's a guy named Sean Chubbs or Krebs or Chubbs. He made a mistake, I guess.
Oh.
There was a mistake when they were recording live, and then they went back into playback, and it's like, we can't fix it. You know? Tried to find a version to see the original to see where that happened.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it, but that's the reason why they didn't air that one.
I figured it was something to do with licensing since it's a Bowie song.
Right, yeah.
That could have been.
They clearly
Or
were able
maybe
to
they were like,
Because he was a session musician.
That literally may have been it. The Nirvana covered Bowie on their Unplugged thing. May have been why they didn't put it on this on that version, or like on the live version.
Right, yeah.
But then like we had to wait 20 years, 15 years for it to actually be released, or you could like listen to it.
Right.
It was weird. It was like fucking the Berenstain Bears or the Mandela Effect, where you know where I'm like,
thought it was there.
I know I fucking watched this in '93 or '94 or whatever. This shit exists, but now I gotta wait until my 30s to listen to it again or whatever it was.
Did you ever hear the story behind Bowie playing that song for Warhol?
No,
He played it for him and he hated it.
Warhol hated it.
He hated it.
That's so funny.
Because he was a self-conscious dude.
Yeah.
Because he had skin disease.
Right.
Very self-conscious about his appearance. But the only compliment that he did give Bowie was apparently he was wearing some women's yellow shoes. I don't know if they were pumps.
Bowie was?
Bowie was. And he complimented on those. And Bowie was like, Jesus Christ, I just wrote this damn song about you. And you're telling me that my shoes are nice.
That's funny.
Who knows
Song
if that's
sucks,
true?
but hey, your yellow shoes are pretty sweet.
That's right. Yeah.
So, ordinarily here I would have, like, let's talk about the underrated song from the album, but, like, this isn't an album that, I don't know about you guys, but I was never able to spend a ton of time with it. Did you?
When it came out, yes.
Yeah? So,
Yeah.
what's the underrated song for you on this album?
I really think that, and I thought about this and I going back and forth about it. Mm-hmm. And I think it has to be Sex Type Thing.
I said I wanna get next to you. I said I'm gonna get close to you. You wouldn't want me have to hurt you too.
Okay, this version of Sex Type
Yes.
Thing is something else.
It is.
It's the funnest version of a date rape song I've ever
Yes.
heard outside of Sublime.
It's very interesting. and I'll tell you my reasons why. It's because the sound of it is very swingy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's almost loungy.
It's deliberately.
Deliberately loungy. And I didn't know this at the time, but there's a lyric in there when it's in a break, and he says, "Hey there, how's your steak?"
I love that moment. My
Yeah.
favorite moment in the whole fucking
It is.
set.
In '94, I did not know what that meant. I wasn't old enough to understand what lounge music
Yeah,
was
he's
or lounge
referencing like
singer.
dinner theater or whatever.
Yes, and he was totally doing that.
Yeah, that's
Obviously,
really
there's nobody there
fucking
eating a steak. He was just making light of the situation.
Right.
Funny, yeah.
It's pretty funny.
And what's funny about that, I got an interesting story. My older brother Marty, he went and saw STP in '99 at the Palace.
Hey there, how's your steak?
Got really close, and he made a sign that said, "Hey there, how's your steak?" on a sign.
That's awesome.
And he got really close, and this is a true story. He showed it. He was holding it up. Weiland acknowledged him, pointed at it, and laughed, and wanted it to come up. He wanted to take the sign, but
Yeah.
security wouldn't allow it. Security took the sign, so that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, but that's cool. It's cool Weiland saw it and
Yeah.
acknowledged it. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Fern, what about you? Did you get to spend time with this album to the point where you feel like you could say you have an underrated track from this album?
Wicked Garden.
That's exactly what my choice too.
Because it's like a little departure from the original arrangement.
Right. It's exciting,
He changes his vocals a little bit during the burn part.
especially there.
And you feel like a child. And you see what I want. I wanna run through your wicked garden.
And like the intro, you're kind of like, this is very reminiscent of a song that I am familiar with,
Yeah.
but you don't really catch it until they go into that first verse, and then you're like, oh yeah, I got it, here I am. I thought it was kind of ballsy even to like change the arrangement on that song.
Their first hit single.
Right, yeah, in a setting like that, I thought it was ballsy, and I think they pulled it off. Yeah, for sure.
I agree 100%. Like, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun song.
During the breakdown of the Burn, 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 because it totally drops. It goes like halftime, and he's like, burn, burn, burn. The more I listen to that, it's like I want a re-release where they actually do that and then go into the studio version of burn, burn after that.
You're imagining like a hybrid of the two songs together.
It would be cool.
Yes.
That would never happen.
No,
obviously.
not now. It's literally a physical impossibility.
Physically
now.
impossible. But at first, when it originally came out, I was kind of like bummed about that, bringing the best, because that was my favorite part of the song, is when he was like,
oh, I could see.
Yeah.
I could
was
see
like,
people
holy-
being bummed about that.
and
Yeah.
it was like, oh,
It's
man,
it's a complete 180.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like climaxing, and then all of a sudden my load's gone. What the hell?
Poor load.
Poor way to put it. But maybe we can edit that out.
I probably won't.
All right. But that's kind of what it made me feel like. Oh man, that's my favorite part, and you kind of.
Yeah.
But that's just my preference. Other people might love it, and
there
I still do love it.
Is there a different favorite part of the album now for you? Because for me, it's the hey, how's your steak? That's literally my favorite part.
Probably the best. But here's my favorite: the way that and we haven't got to Plush yet, which is probably the most popular song that SVP's ever written, besides Interstate. Or, but when he's and I feel when he does that higher note, right there. I love it, man. It gets me every time.
Yeah. I can see that.
It's because it's more of a feeling thing. I don't think he even practiced that.
No,
And then he does
yeah.
the humming in there.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
He doesn't come off like he's overly rehearsed it.
Right.
He comes off always as someone who's feeling it, like a true front man. Just like, this is, I might be changing this little tweak here, but it's because that's what I'm feeling in this moment.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. All right. Is there a worse song on this album? It's only 7.
You want to talk about the worst song?
I don't even like to say that worst song. Least good.
least
song.
desirable.
Is there a least good song on this album?
I would have to say Andy Warhol, because the song's already been done before, and they did it cleverly. The guy's obviously a fan of Bowie. He's making it very obvious.
It's not very different from the original.
And not at all.
Yeah.
And Robert's bass lines are incredible. He's doing runs everywhere. There's bongos happening. The way he's singing, it's right on key. I mean, there's no deviation at all that I can notice, and I've listened to it enough times to be able to. We all have been playing music for a long time. You
Sure.
can hear it.
He was on point every song.
He was on
to
point
be honest.
right
yeah,
there.
I mean, he's so good.
But that's one of those songs where when it gets to that one, I just don't listen to it because I just heard it so many times,
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the original. That's just my personal preference, though.
I'm stoked that it exists. Like,
It is cool.
I hadn't listened to this in a long time, and I'm not sure that I remember them even covering this. So, like, looking at the track list before the song came up, I'm like, is it going to be the Bowie song? Is it going to be the Bowie song? It's got to be the Bowie song. And then it was, and I was excited. But, yeah, it is too similar to the original. Fern, what do you think?
It's already been said. Sex type thing is kind of my least fave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the swingy lounge thing. I just don't like.
Yeah.
Like I can listen to it. I'm like, yeah, no. It just doesn't do it for me.
But it's good that
personally.
they were kind of
No,
making fun of themselves as it was happening,
and
which
I
is cool.
totally
Right.
can appreciate, like trying something new and mixing it up. Like again, that's a ballsy move.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate and respect, but from a listener perspective, I'm just it's a no for me, dog. Yeah.
Well, kind of like how Jeff was disappointed by Wicked Garden, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Did either you guys ever see him live? I never saw him live.
I saw him live with Aerosmith.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was probably right 97 or 98, right around that era. And it was at the Palace. But I got there late, so I only got to see like half the set.
Okay.
And I was far away, so it was just an echo chamber.
You can say you saw him, but didn't
I
really
could say
feel
it,
like
but
it.
I didn't feel
Yeah,
it.
there's a few bands.
It was one of
like that.
those.
Fern, you?
No, I don't know. I missed all those good bands that I was into from like 91 to 95.
When we were
probably.
young, it's hard to get them.
Yeah. I blame my parents. They were, so overprotective. No, I mean, I couldn't be trusted to go to like Fox Theater or something big and outdoorsy or something cool like that. It was not in the cards for me at that time in my life. Yeah.
Can we get back to Creep for a second?
That's exactly. Go right ahead.
Creep's a great song. You said that was one of your favorites, Fern. I agree with you to a point, but to me, it's too similar to the studio recording. There's not that much variance besides the parts that you
There's
talked
a lot of
about.
acoustic accompaniment on the first, original core version.
It makes sense that they would use that for the Unplugged show.
It just kind of made sense. It was
it was a big single.
Right.
So, but I hear what you're saying, though.
Yeah, for sure.
There's not too much that you can really do to it, but it never was a standout because it was too similar to the original for me.
Fair enough.
But it's a good song. I always loved it. Always will love it. But
can we take this moment to point out Fern's black nail polished toes?
Oh my goodness! Look at that.
Thank you, matte black. Yeah.
Why just the toes and not the fingernails?
I don't know.
That's just how you're feeling.
My niece asked me. She's 12, and she's like, she just got for her birthday a big old thing of like 25 colors, and she's like, "Can I do your toes, Uncle Derek?" And I was like, "Sure." And she was like, "What?" Like, I think she was shocked as shit. I'm like, "I don't care. Go ahead."
Honestly,
like, what color do you want?
This is what I was assuming and hoping you would say. The child did it.
Yeah, it was not me. Yeah,
It'd be cool if you did. I wouldn't judge. I just, if anything, I was like, "Why the toes and not the fingernails?" But now it makes sense. Sorry, I'm staring at his feet because we're like by a pool,
sorry.
and we are going to swim with some beers in us.
We got to get in
after this.
Can I comment about?
You can comment about whatever the fuck you want to comment about.
Yeah, the drummer Eric Kretz. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I believe so.
Big influence for me, believe it or not.
I do,
because I was kind of a metal dude.
Yeah.
But everybody knows Led Zeppelin, John Bonham, how solid he was, rock solid. Everything is on point all the time.
Yeah.
That dude is the same way. He's never. I can't find one, and I've searched where he's messed up or overdone something. It's almost too much. It's almost too good.
It's too precise.
It's too precise because when you're jamming to a song, man, sometimes you have a tendency to want it to speed up.
Right.
No, he's in a pocket.
Yeah.
He does not leave that pocket. And it's such a rare trait for a drummer. That's when you know somebody's good. Because I'm not speaking about me or anybody else that I know.
You are a drummer, though. So
I am a drummer. And somebody told me this long ago to watch the crowd.
Yeah.
Find a head and watch it move. That's how you keep time. Because
if they start speeding up.
Yes. Or you're on point when you see some dude that's like just at the bar and he's just nodding back and forth. Watch that dude because he's enjoying it subconsciously.
Like a
feeling the groove.
Human metronome.
Feeling that groove.
That's great.
That's the perfect, Travis. You nailed it.
That's funny.
But as far as how I relate to music, drums wise, he's great. And I'm not sure what he's doing now. I think they're touring with a new singer from like American Idol or something.
From what I understand, that's pretty much what they're doing. When Aaron Worley was on and did the Purple album for this show, he would echo those sentiments as well. Just that Eric Kretz is a dramatically underrated drummer.
Yes, big time.
Yeah. And I guess that was one of the few complaints that I think I might have about the album is that he isn't able to go full bore as much, especially when he relies on the bongos. It's like, oh man, like you should be all fucking over the place right now, but you're kind of reined in. Yeah. But again, that's also the sign of a good drummer, that he could spread wide or focus real tight.
And if you listen really close, like I brought up Big Empty, it's one of my favorite ones. His nuance of like the ghost notes, you're familiar with that. They're very subtle. In that breakdown, that long breakdown, and that thunderous. Those aren't meant to be the center of attention. Those are back burner items. But the tone is so low in the way he cadences it. It's perfect. It's like, man, you always think, oh, could I do that better if I had the chance? Or no, I can't, because it's absolutely right on.
Is there a criticism for the album at all, Fern? Besides Sex Type Thing?
I don't even know if I could criticize the album or their performance necessarily, but I guess like from like an overarching, MTV's Unplugged perspective, I think what's lacking maybe is the production value given post-show to the recordings. Like with Alice in Chains and even Pearl Jam, but Nirvana, like those three kind of like stand out, I guess, because they were given that post, production.
Dude,
and but this
Definitely.
one wasn't. So
no, you're right.
I feel like it's a little, I don't know, it's just lacking that little magical something that someone with a heart behind, a big board could really bring out of it.
I think you really nailed exact same issue I have with this album, which is a minor one.
Yeah,
but
it's not the band's fault. It's not the performance fault.
It's MTV's fault or whoever released the album.
Mm-hmm.
When I did the episode with my buddy Brad on Nirvana's MTV Unplugged, we talked about how Scott Litt came in.
Yeah.
And I watched the original MTV Unplugged that was aired, and I listened to the album that he produced, and there's a big difference.
Yeah,
it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And this album, Stone Temple Pilots Unplugged, it doesn't feel like someone came in and cleaned up any messes and scrubbed it clean and shiny like it needed to be.
One thing I noticed also that's weird to me is when I listen to it, I don't think the audience knew the songs.
They're clapping in all these weird fucking places.
They don't know the breakdowns.
That's hilarious.
Like,
I didn't notice
when
that.
there's the breaks.
Oh yeah, and Creep, when they're like
every
they stop,
time, every time
they're
they're
clapping, and he's like,
and Andy Warhol.
Take time.
Right, they're already clapping. Like, all right, good job, guys.
Yeah,
no,
good song.
The song's still.
And that happens sometimes at shows. Like I've done that even at a show where I know the song and I'm just so excited.
Yeah,
I just do it anyways, and I'm I'm a sheep and I follow the crowd.
Yeah.
But
that was a higher day in audience that
but
day.
I think you're right. I think
that's a
the
good
audience
point.
was not
That is a good
super.
point.
They weren't
Holy
super
shit, why are you
STP
clapping
fans.
already? The best part's still to come, man.
Like, shh, guys, come on.
Right.
You ruined it. We're supposed to live in that space.
Some guy invented "Don't clap now" sign. Has that ever been done before? But
First time,
should have
guys?
for this album.
did you notice that when you're listening?
Oh, 100%.
Weird.
I totally
clap
noticed
times.
it. Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I noticed at least 3 songs out of 7, which says a lot.
Well, and you hear a few people start those awkward claps, and everyone's like, "Oh, is that the end?" No, I thought there was.
No,
oh, yeah, there's more. Okay.
Yep, there's more.
So
They
there
just go
is
with it.
there is a little bit of a feel because Stone Temple Pilots is not a grunge band, but they were trying to be shoehorned by everyone into that spot, and there is kind of a feel with this Unplugged performance. Now, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Sting, all kinds of guys came out and did Unplugged performances.
Wasn't it Jay-Z?
Meatloaf did one, Jay-Z did one. But when you
weird.
think of the successful Unplugged albums, Neil Young, okay. But other than that, it's like the Alice in Chains. Well, they didn't really have the
Clapton
album.
had a good one.
Clapton had a super. Okay,
Yes,
that's true.
I'm losing my argument here. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
But no, you're
That
right.
one was
But
great.
other than that, you think of Pearl Jam and Nirvana's Unplugged, right? So
Yep.
I do kind of feel like they're trying to cash in on that a little bit and kind of again make them do that stuff.
Yes.
But you're right. At the time, there was tons of different acts that were doing it. So maybe not my
And
argument.
it was
is
kind
invalid.
of hitting different demographics too, as far
Yeah.
as age and nostalgia and stuff like that. Because when you go back and listen to the stuff, it's in the time because you appreciate stuff differently as time goes on. Obviously, you listen to an album 20 years later and you hear things that you didn't hear, you didn't appreciate then, and now you're like, wow. You can be so used to hearing something for 20 years and it becomes like, no big deal. But you got to think, nobody had ever heard that when it happened.
It's true.
So that's what makes it great.
It's classic for a reason, but it was new and fresh at some point. That's why
Right.
it became a classic.
Yeah.
Do you have any criticisms or other thoughts about this album before we move on?
I was kind of disappointed that they added that higher-on guitarist. They
Yeah.
had a session musician there.
I didn't even fucking notice that.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it, I do remember
Yeah,
someone playing
and he's
kind
the
of
one that-
off to the side.
Yeah, he's the one that messed up Andy Warhol. That's why they couldn't air it on the TV.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
But his credit, he's a
Fucking hired guy.
session musician. He probably didn't have time to learn it as well as he should have.
Yeah, I misread it, as I'm sure that.
Yeah, but I would have much rather see the founding original members and not some dude playing guitar on the side.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause
Yeah.
it takes
I
away
feel
from
you,
what's
I
really
feel
the
you.
band doing.
No, yeah.
Does it need that extra dude?
Because
Yeah.
they're focused, those hired guns are literally just focusing on precision, like you were kind of talking about earlier, but almost to a fault.
Right.
It's about the technical aspect of what they're doing. They're not necessarily feeling it like the band members are who helped write it or co-write it, or
Because they're not involved with the
make
original
their own
idea.
parts. Right, yeah. So they're literally just there to play what you tell them. Mm-hmm. So it almost takes the juice out of it,
Yeah.
I totally feel that because, I recently saw Sunny Day Real Estate and they were awesome, but they had a third guitarist up there. Who,
Oh, they did? Not when I saw him.
Oh, he was great, but
That's funny.
He was technically sound, and I kind of made jokes. He looked like David Spade, but I only got sick of my jokes by the end of the show. But
Well, she's your wife. It's her job. Get sick of your jokes.
Shut up, Derek. Fuck, I get it. He looks like David Spade. Not funny. and he was great, but like, yeah, he was doing all the leads and everything, and it was kind of like, meh, you know, like a kind of a letdown. But so I totally see what you're saying.
Because I saw him on the same tour, and I don't remember there being some dude I didn't.
Maybe
notice.
he wasn't on that leg, but
know, that's funny. Do you have anything else to say about this album before we move on?
I just want to say that he's probably one of my favorite bassists of all time too. You said his name, and
Robert.
Thank you. Yeah.
And did you know he met Weiland at a concert in 1989 when they were in Mighty Joe Young? They were dating the same girlfriend.
And they laughed about it.
They laughed about it, and they formed a band.
That's great.
That's so cool.
That's very
like
cool.
I play bass. You want to get together?
Yeah,
that's
man.
so
They
funny.
ditched the girl and started a band and got famous.
so
It's pretty fucking
That's
cool.
a great story, if true. But
That's what they put out, so I'll choose to believe it.
I know that this is an Unplugged thing, which, I don't know, it's always so funny when it's like, Unplugged means acoustic, but he's playing an electric bass the entire show.
Oh,
they all know what that bass is?
They all do.
That's
Awesome.
That's a Apollo violin bass, they call those.
Okay.
Oh.
And it's kind of reminiscent of Paul McCartney.
Okay.
You know, that style.
Yeah,
Okay.
But McCartney played a Vox, I think it was.
There you
Like
go.
the amps, like Vox
Yeah.
amps.
Okay.
They made Vox guitars and basses at the time. Just the body. I don't
Okay.
think they did the headstock and the fretboard. But yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Because I'm always interested in gear. Learn that.
Yeah,
from
for
Jim.
sure. Well, he's just got such a cool style too. Like you see him like plucking with his
everywhere.
thumb, but then he moves to like the forefinger and the middle finger. I'm just like, wow, that he is technically sound too. And I'm not a bassist, but playing with Jim, who we all know and love because he's phenomenal at bass.
Jim's always reminded me of him.
Yeah, like the way he could go
Always
back
running.
and forth,
Yeah.
and like he didn't rely on one style in particular. You know, could mix it up to just make that bass sing. So that was kind of always my thing with him on bass. Like, and he has some really great runs
Oh,
where
yeah,
you're just
constantly.
just hits that sweet
That
spot.
bass line
of
on
notes.
Big Empty.
Yes,
is
it's
sick.
so unbelievable.
You could almost isolate that, and I'd be like, "That's fine.
yeah,
I'll listen to that."
Right.
it's so
Just bring
good.
down the volumes on the other guys.
It's so good.
So it's funny because I was into Stone Temple Pilots, but I kind of like got over them for a long time, and so I've been revisiting them a lot for the show and coming to be like, oh, I have been missing out. I liked them, but I should have been paying more attention to them. Another band that I did that with, but I came back to them sooner, is Alice in Chains.